Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Neuro-Inclusive Dog Pod. This is a podcast where we bridge the gap between neurodivergence and the dog world. And today I am joined by another fantastic guest that's going to come and talk to you all about what the work that she does. So instead of me introducing her, I'm going to let her introduce herself. So hello, Sam. Welcome to the podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
I will do. Thanks so much for having me on. I've been really looking forward to this. So I'm Sam, and I run Samantha Wayland dog training. You know, no original names for me. My brain couldn't come up with any. And I'm a rescue specialist, mainly overseas rescues. So I work with UK rescues as well, but I work mainly with dogs sort of from Cyprus, Romania, Spain. And just incorporating them and helping them settle in and getting the most successful adoptions that we can.
Yeah, so I'm when I was doing a lot more dog training, dog agility classes, all of that, we had quite a lot, and I know we've spoken about this before, of the Romanian rescues and those, and it's tended to be what I found quite a lot. It was a little bit of a, not, I wouldn't say trend, but it was quite popular for people to rescue from overseas. What do you think makes the different areas, so to speak, the differences between the dogs for someone who's thinking about getting an overseas rescue? So the difference between your Cypriot rescues, your Romanian rescues, or all the rest of it, would you say there's a big difference depending on where you rescue from?
Yeah, definitely, there's a huge difference. So I think the popularity sort of arose, and it got more so during lockdown, because it was harder for people were at home, so they were like, oh, let's get a dog. That's when, when we saw the rise in puppies and everything else. Rescue dogs, as much as I hate to say it, rescue dogs are cheaper than that 2,000, 3,000 pound puppy. And I think during lockdown, obviously everyone was online a lot. It's harder to adopt from the UK, I think. And then a lot of people were online and they were seeing all these per dogs abroad, so they were sort of focusing on rescuing a dog and saving them. The biggest difference is, I would say, between Romanian and Cyprus rescues. Romanian dogs, and this is like a generalization, not every single one, because I have one Romanian who is amazing with everyone and everything, but they tend to be a lot more traumatized. They have a lot more fear of people, so they're more wary, especially of men. They're more wary of new noises, new sounds, new everything. And especially people, because they've been through more trauma, more abuse brought on by people. Whereas dogs from, say, Cyprus, although they definitely have traumas and they, also can be very wary, a lot of their trauma sort of comes from neglect and abandonment rather than actual hands-on abuse. So a majority of dogs from Cyprus are, I think it's about 95%, they reckon, are gun dogs, so they're ex-hunting dogs, that have been either abandoned by the hunters because they weren't fast enough, or they weren't, working well enough, or it's simply the end of the season and they don't want them anymore, don't need them. Or sometimes they run away because a lot of the hunters they don't feed them, because they think, well, if we don't feed them, they'll work harder. Right. So they don't necessarily have that sort of, not all of them again, but a huge generalization, they don't have as much of that sort of physical abuse that you would get in Romania.
Yeah, and do you see a difference between how they transition into UK homes and depending on the areas that they come from?
Yeah, definitely. Romanians do tend to find it a lot harder, especially in busier households. Obviously, a lot of Romanian dogs are guardian breeds. They're not genetically made to live in a house or a flat in the centre of London. They're made to have loads of land and to be able to walk the perimeter and lie down all day and then be a coiled spring as soon as there's a noise. But if you transfer that into an inner city 2-bedroomed apartment, they're lying down all day, and as soon as they hear a noise, they're going crazy. And then the owner's like, why is my dog guarding my house, and why are they barking? Like, well, it's kind of what they were made for. Whereas the Cyprus dogs they settle quite well once they're used to being inside a home. They tend to sort of relax a lot better. But obviously they, as hunting dogs, are very scent driven, so everything involves scent with them. So there's kind of two different aspects of them.
Amazing. So you mentioned before that you work with different organizations. So can you tell us a little bit about that, how that works and how you match dogs to families and everything you do basically?
Yeah, so I'm part of Pet Professional Network, and via them, they arrange a trip to Cyprus that goes over every March, April time. And through them, I met the Positive Dog Trainer Academy and Maria, who runs that. And she then trains up, obviously, a lot of dog trainers in Cyprus, but she also works alongside a lot of rescues in Cyprus. And one of them that I met 2024 was Rights for Animal Rescue Cyprus. And their ethics and their way of thinking just really aligned with how I was, and we just had like an instant connection. So I work a lot with them. So when they are bringing dogs over for foster homes or for adoptions, they will send me sort of all the paperwork. So I'll see like home checks, adoption forms, I'll know, where they work, what kids they have, and this is the dog, and they'll have like a little rundown of the dog. At the minute, it's really nice because the dogs that are all being adopted are ones that I've actually met. So I've kind of seen them myself and thought, I know what type of home you need. So it's been really helpful. But so yeah, then we tend to match them up with, okay, this dog would be better with a more confident, resident dog. So let's not put them in as an only dog, or this house has a younger child. Let's not give them a nervous dog. Let's give them a dog that's okay around children. And we kind of match them up from there. And then I book all of the adopters and the fosters actually in for a pre-arrival session. So we talk through everything, like what to expect, and literally the sort of really lowering those expectations. The whole thing is literally about lowering your expectations and sort of, be prepared that this could take a long time. And then after that, then they book in for another session. And then they can decide whether obviously they want to continue working with me or whether they want to work with hands-on with a trainer. And if they do, then we'll match them with a force-free sort of science-led trainer that is experienced with overseas rescues, that is nearby, so that they can sort of have hands-on training as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Sounds fantastic. I didn't realize. So when we've been like anything, when I do these podcasts, I get to speak to some fantastic guests working in lots of different areas of dog training, and I always like learn so much. And I didn't understand. Well, I wasn't aware that it was, because you always hear on social media about the bad rescues and the ones where people have just shipped them over and dumped them and never to be helped again, kind of thing. But I didn't realize that this kind of matching up kind of happened, which is fantastic, really. But we touched on there talking about expectations and realistic expectations when it comes to taking on an overseas dog. So what do you think someone who wants to take on an overseas dog should expect? Because we said, didn't we, touched on earlier about how a lot of people go overseas for whatever different reasons, lots of different reasons why people do things. And rescuing in the UK is kind of, it is quite hard. There is quite a lot of, boxes to tick or whatever, however you want to speak about it. But when it comes to overseas, sometimes some people might think that it's easier to adopt from overseas. It might be easier in one respect, but what do you think people can actually realistically expect when they bring that dog home?
I think a lot of people have this, I think because of social media and TikTok and everything else, people see all these famous TikTok rescuers and the dogs are so grateful they've been rescued, and they're hugging them and they're kissing their faces, and it's so nice and it's amazing. And a lot of people think that's what's going to happen, and that could not be further from the truth. You're going, especially from overseas, you're going to get a dog that's probably never even seen a house before, let alone been inside one before. They'll be like dogs from Romania, they travel for 3 to 4 days to get to the UK. So it is a long journey. They're not, there's no stops for, toilets and that sort of stuff. They are just, they go in the crate and it's cleaned up. So when they get to you, they smell. They've got, probably got dried wee and poo all over them. Like they really, it's a special kind of smell that you get very used to, but it's horrible. They're hugely traumatized because they've been shoved in a crate. They don't know they're being rescued. They've got no idea. Dogs from Cyprus, it's a shorter journey. It's still 24 hours, but it's a lot shorter. They fly to Germany, and then they're placed in different buses and they're sent all over Europe from there. They've probably never been in a house before. They'll literally come off the bus, you'll be putting them into, if depending on how it is, some transports drop straight to your door, some transports go to a service station and people have to collect them from service stations, which is a huge panic for me, really. It makes my palms go sweaty every time, because I'm like, oh my God, that's the fear of what could go wrong. They've never, you know, they've never been around a TV, they've never seen a mirror, they've never seen a window. All these little things that we really, really take for granted are terrifying to these dogs. You know, our wash machines, our hoovers, our, you know, a sweeping brush, the central heating coming on, all these little things can be massive, massive triggers. And every time your dog, an overseas dog, is accepting of one of those things, it's a massive win. But I don't think people sometimes are expecting that. You know, they're expecting the fact that they're not going to be able to have visitors for a few weeks. They're not going to be able to go out and walk their dogs, you know, for it could be months. Some of these dogs have never been on a lead before, so it could be months and months. One of my own from Romania, she came over, I think at the end of the October, and it took until the March before we got her to even move outside on a lead. She was terrified. So it can be a really, really slow process. I'm working with an absolutely amazing dog at the moment from Cyprus, an ex-hunting dog. His family they're fantastic. Absolutely could not wish for better adopters, but it is so slow. Like they've got to the point now, he arrived in January. They're being able to stroke him, they can touch him, but when he let them touch them for the first time, they were in tears. They were just like, this is amazing, but it took months to get to that point. So I think potential adopters need to realize that it's patience and time is going to be your biggest thing. If you think you're going too slow, and I think actually I was chatting to Ali Greenwood a while back, and she was like, if you think you're going too slow, then go slower, because there is no such thing as too slow with these dogs. So it takes a lot.
Yeah, and you touched on there about just how I didn't realize how kind of traumatic it is just to bring them over, especially the ones from Romania, where they're just literally shoved in a crate in a vehicle and then just left, basically. Now, if you think about how in the UK we kind of look after our dogs, so obviously we're not going to get into the big, you know, crate training versus not crate training, because that's a whole debate in itself. However, if someone was to look at my gun dogs are all crate trained, happy, you know, that kind of thing, just that's where I'm coming from with it. However, if you've got a Romanian rescue that has gone through that trauma, and then they're a bit nervous or put in the wrong home, or it could even be like you know, a dangerous situation, you can't really do that crate training with them. Well, it has to be super slow because they've got that trauma just from coming over. So I think there's a lot of things that people don't always think about when it comes to rescuing from overseas, that they might think, oh, you know, if we can manage the dog, or we'll put gates up, or we'll do crate training. It's not always as simple as that, because they don't always think about the psychological damage that the dogs, that it's been done to the dog, kind of thing, and how you have to unpick that so much. So they might have this thinking, oh, we'll rescue from overseas, and they are doing a good thing by rescuing for whatever reason. But I think definitely a lot more awareness. So this is why I'm super happy to come on to the podcast, to realize about all of the little things that come across, because there is these Facebook groups that just pop up and say, you know, I know I've had clients before who have brought a, you know, £200-300 dog from Romania and then brought it to agility classes, thinking that that's going to just make everything all okay, and it's not their fault. They thought they was doing a good thing. They thought they was helping, but then they've just been left with this dog. And then obviously the places that they got it from, there is some unscrupulous people that, you know, don't help. They're just like, here's your dog, don't want anything else more to do with it. And then these people are left with like, oh my God, what do I do? And then I think the psychological things from a human's perspective, they think, oh, what am I doing wrong? Is it just what we're doing? You know, and because they've not got all of this information and awareness of what they're taking on before they actually take it on. So when it comes to adopting from overseas, what do you think some of the biggest do's and don'ts would be?
So the biggest one obviously is giving them time, which is obviously something I've touched on already. You mentioned crate training, and crate training, or like a safe area, like an area for the dog, is huge for these dogs, because like I know I could, if I did a 4-day journey, my head, I'd be ready to explode. Like I would be so overwhelmed And
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. You know, I know that I'm on my way to this place. These dogs don't know. They just know that, you know, one minute they were caught on a thing, and then they were shoved in a pen, and then they were put in, you know, they were jabbed by a vet, and they were put in a bus, and they've got no idea that they are being saved. They, you know,
Yeah.
they're not going to be grateful. So having an area that they can go to that is just theirs,
Yeah.
nobody's going to go into it. Nobody, you know, apart from obviously to clean and give them food and that sort of stuff, no one's going to go near them. So somewhere in a non-high traffic area. So don't put this safe area somewhere where everyone's walking past every 3 seconds. Somewhere that's just out of the way. If the dog wants to come to you, brilliant. If the dog wants to run back in, absolutely fine. And it's so much, I find, with these dogs is just consent based and just letting them make their own decisions, because these dogs have lived however long making all their decisions themselves. You know, oh my God, there's something scary, I'm not going over there, I'm going to go over here, I'm going to eat here, and I'm going to run there, I'm going to climb this, I'm going to pee here, and I'm going to, you know, they've made all their decisions, and then all of a sudden they've had everything taken away. So they don't understand. So every little choice that you can let them make, you know, if they want to come to you, brilliant. If they want to stay away, fine. If they want to eat, that's okay. They want to pee, brilliant, go for it. It's just letting them choose, and you see this, you know, the confidence just grow and grow. It is just a really slow, but I think having a safe area, because again, these dogs have had nothing of their own before. So if they come into a house, like say, for instance, I've got 3 dogs. I've got a new rescue dog that arrives in 2.5 weeks. He's never had, you know, he's never had his own bed or his own toys or anything like that. So when he arrives, he could very well go work. If I said, okay, you can just sleep wherever you want, don't worry about it, you know, you don't have your own area, he might then start guarding that, because he's never had things, and then all of a sudden he has all these things, so he doesn't want to give them up, because you know they might be taken away, he might never get them again. So it's about sort of letting them make choices, but also keeping them safe, and sort of making sure you're not giving them I don't want to say too much freedom, but it is that in some ways they need some sort of boundaries to keep everyone safe as well as them. So it's a fine line. It is a fine line.
Yeah, I think it's difficult as well, wasn't it, when the human side, I always talk about this from an agility perspective. You've got like the human element to the you know, to the agility, or to the dog, you know, owning, dog training, whatever that is, and their expectations and what they want and their whys and stuff. And then you've got the dogs as well and their needs and stuff. And sometimes they don't match up, you know, or the expectations or of that. So what would you say, from what you've seen, what are some of the most common pitfalls or misconceptions that can actually lead to placements failing? So have you ever had it where you know, you've had to say, actually, this isn't working out? Obviously all the work you do, it actually prevents that, but sometimes can things go wrong? And if they do go wrong, what do you think is the most common things that lead up to placements failing?
The most common one is doing everything too quickly. So going on walks immediately. A lot of people don't realize that the first 48 hours, legally, they're not allowed to take the dog out of the house. A lot of people don't realize that. And in fact, a lot of rescues don't tell them that they can't do it. So it's a DEFRA law that to have a legal transport, your dog that has been imported has to be on the premises of the transport paperwork for 48 hours, and they cannot leave. DEFRA do checks. They will check. You know, it's in the south of England, it's not very common that they'll check because there's so many, but they do come out and they will visit and check that those dogs are there where they're meant to be, and they'll scan them, make sure they're the correct dogs. I normally recommend to adopters to at least wait a minimum of a week before even thinking about taking your dog out for a walk. I think a really common misconception is, yeah, but they're so wound up. If I get them out, I'll tire them out on this walk, and then they'll be so much better. But they're in a completely different place. They're on a lead. They've never been on a lead before. They're with people they don't know, they don't trust. They're seeing things, they're smelling things, like, you know, that they don't have squirrels in Cyprus and Romania. So, you know, all these little things are huge, like triggers for them. And then you tend to see that within a couple of weeks, you've then got this reactive dog on a walk, because they're so overwhelmed that they have to react in some way. So you've got this lunging and barking, or people who will have visitors too soon. They've got a busy household and then they'll have visitors as well, and you've got people coming and going, or people who just haven't prepared. So, you
Mm.
know, homes that, I mean, I've worked with adopters who have literally just moved into their home. They've still got builders there. They've not even got curtains. They've not got blinds. And then they've got this overseas rescue. And, you know, when you're just like, this is just, you've made your
Yeah.
life really, really difficult right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, just, I think just really, people really need to just focus on that bond that they are building with that dog. Focus on that. Forget everything else. Don't worry about teaching them to sit or teaching them to do anything else. Just build a
Mm.
bond. And then afterwards, everything else just falls into place. Because once you've got
Yeah.
that bond, if
Yeah.
anything goes wrong, you've got that to fall back on, and it just
Yeah.
makes everything so much easier.
Yeah, definitely. I always talk about that in agility a lot because we, especially from agility perspective, people have all of these expectations and stuff. And they, you know, a lot of agility trainers focus on skills and all the, you know, all the sexy stuff, for want of a better way of explaining it. But I specialize in anxious and sensitive dogs. You can't always do that. So for my young dog Quest, I've had to just strip everything back. We've just done lots on relationship, lots of bonding, lots of that. We're going at everything at his pace. And I always say to people, like, all of what I do, my logos are all little jigsaw pieces, because I massively believe it doesn't matter whether it's agility, neurodivergence, business, whatever it is, it's all about all of the little jigsaw pieces. And I often say the relationship is the glue that holds all the jigsaw together.
Yeah.
And if you're missing a jigsaw piece, if you've got a strong enough glue, a strong enough relationship, that glue will fill that gap for you. So if you're in agility and your skills are lacking, as long as you have got that bond, that connection, you can usually get away with it. You know, it's obviously different in different dog training contexts, but yeah, I think we are quite tuned to thinking, oh, we need to train the dog to do X, Y, and Z, or we see the internet and everybody's like doing this, that, and the other with the dog. And this is where, for me, the human element of dog ownership, dog training needs to be separate from the dogs, because our expectations and what we want is so sometimes different from what the dog can manage. And I think, especially in a lot of what I do, you often spend as much time changing or helping the owner with their own expectations and telling them about, changing their mindset, really, to then go, actually, this is where the dog is at. It doesn't mean you can never get to that point, but we need to just, dial back your expectations a little bit. And I think as dog trainers, when we first train people and qualify, that isn't easy, like for me, luckily, I've come from a counselling psychology background, so the human element comes quite easily to me. However, I think when we're dog training and we're focusing so much on the dog and we've got these owners in front of us, especially if you're new to the industry or whatever it might be, it can be quite overwhelming, can't it? To think, oh my God, and you've got a case where, so for example, if you're a new dog trainer and you get an overseas rescue with no support or anything and you're thrown in, and no, I was definitely in this place a few years ago, it's kind of this sharp learning curve to go, oh my God, this dog has got XYZ not wrong with it, but it's, this is what we need to work on. The owners have got completely different expectations, and it's like, I think that's why with what I'm doing with the Neuro-Inclusive Dog Hub is building this community of people, so we have got those support systems in place, because I think it doesn't matter where you get a dog from, whether it's a puppy, an overseas rescue, there's so many things that can go wrong, and if you've not got that support system around you, it can just be quite overwhelming, can't it, sometimes?
Yeah.
So when it comes to overseas rescues, and if people were thinking about rescuing from overseas, what would you say the key dangers or red flags would be that people should look out for if they're thinking about it? Because like I've mentioned before, the internet is such a vast range of information, both good and bad. So in your opinion, what tends to be the red flags that they should look out for?
It's really hard, because I love overseas rescues. That is where my heart is with overseas rescues. But I'm also hugely aware that for every fantastic rescue, there are 20 pop-up Facebook pages that are just, like you mentioned earlier, just bringing dogs over and then that's it. There's nothing else.
Yeah.
The basics, or, your dog's arrived, that's it. You'll never get a message again type thing. I think if you're looking for an overseas rescue, making sure that the rescue you use, one, have rescue backup. So that an actual rescue backup. They're not just saying it, that if you have an issue and you're like, I cannot cope with this dog, that they will come, they will, they'll either arrange transport or whatever, but they would take that dog and it'll either go into kennels or go into another foster home or something. A lot of people say they have rescue backup, but then they will leave you with a dog that maybe has bitten for 2 months. and just be like, sort it yourself. We've got nowhere for it to go. And that's not rescue backup. Rescue backup is they'll find a place, a kennel space, whatever.
Yeah.
Somewhere that really does offer that support, that post-adoption support, someone that is they're going to check in, they're going to make sure that everything's okay. And I think it's really hard because obviously you're going to get reviews on all these rescues that say, I got my dog and my dog was amazing. Yeah. And that's brilliant because we've fostered well over 50 dogs, and we've had some dogs that way back at the start, 10 years ago when I knew nothing and I was just very, very lucky. We had several that were amazing. They walked straight in, not a single issue. And that was just pure luck of the draw. There was nothing, but then we started getting more difficult ones. And that was when I realized I really don't know as much as I think I do. And I need to study a bit more. So finding somewhere that, like, word of mouth, that people that that whether they've got a lot of rescues will have a trainer supporting them, and if they don't have a trainer or a behaviourist or something, I would ask who they recommend, what sort of support they offer after the dog arrives, and what is the actual process for if it unfortunately, we don't want to think about if the worst happens, but what does happen to that dog if the worst does happen? Will they rehome the dog? Because another issue, obviously, with all these smaller pop-up rescues is they'll go for like a year and then they'll vanish. And they've brought over thousands of dogs that then they promised rescue backup for, but they've closed the rescue. So where do these dogs go now? And that's when you then start seeing overseas rescues in, UK shelters and things like that. And that's my bugbear, because I know a lot of people say, well, why are we not working with our UK dogs? And I completely get that, but any legitimate rescue, it should never be a point where those dogs end up in a UK shelter. That shouldn't happen if you're using a good, reputable rescue. But it is a minefield. It is a minefield out there. It's not easy. But there is, like, I've got a page, Rescue Dog Care Network, which is myself and 3 other trainers. And if anyone ever needed any sort of advice in relation to rescue dogs, or they wanted sort of, what do you think of this rescue? We're not going to go through, this rescue's awful, don't dare use them. But we will be able to say, we know this one's good and we know that one is really, really good, and sort of we'll be able to advise a little bit better from there. And it's quite a good community for anyone that does have a rescue dog and they're just a little bit anxious, if they don't have support from their rescue and their dog's already here, they can pop a message on there, and it's really supportive, and everybody has experience and qualifications, which is
Perfect. So we've touched quite a lot on the pitfalls and the kind of the negative side, but let's switch it on its head. So throwing a new question at you. So what would you say the positives are from rescuing overseas? Why should somebody rescue from overseas, in your opinion? What are the benefits, those kind of things?
See, I love, you've really put me on the spot there, haven't you? I love rescue dogs. I love all of them. I've got a real soft spot for black dogs. So Raven Shepherd, one of my dogs is a Raven Shepherd, and she's obviously from Romania, and I think because of her I've just got this huge soft spot, so I'm really biased when it comes to overseas. And in fact, my little one that's coming over from Cyprus, he is also a little black thing, mongrel. You can get that. It's so hard, because that's like saying, which breed would you recommend? It's really that's really hard. I personally love them because I love the way their minds work. It does really remind me of me, like some of the little traumas that they've had, and I can see them being triggered by things, and I'm thinking, I would probably be triggered by that too if that was me, and I can sort of see the comparison. So I think for me, I was just like, I can see it. That's a really difficult question. Like, I wouldn't say to someone I recommend adopting from overseas over the UK. I think it's really what type of home you have to what type of dog you can get. For instance, if you have loads of land, get them a guardian breed. They're if they've got a job out there, they're one of the best breeds out there. But if you live in a little flat, then maybe go for my little one that's come over is like a Coney cross. That type of dog would love being in a smaller place and not have any issues with it. So it's really sort of weighing up because each dog has their own sort of benefits. But Romanian dogs, once they are settled, they're super lazy.
Oh, really?
They're really lazy dogs.
Oh, wow.
Because their genes are, they'll lie around all day until something happens.
Yeah.
So they lie around all day. Like mine are in there now, and they've gone out into the garden maybe a couple of times, and that's about it. Then they'll have like this huge burst of energy where we'll do things, and then they're like, oh well, that's that done.
Yeah.
But I would also like to just a caveat that with not all Romanian rescues got to lie around.
Yeah.
Don't expect a lazy dog necessarily, because I don't want people thinking, well, I got a Romanian one and Sam said it'd be lazy and it's bouncing the walls. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's like any dog breed, isn't it? Like whether it's UK, overseas, they've all got the the pros and cons and that kind of thing. But I suppose you see quite a lot of positive success stories when people put the work in and they understand what they're getting involved in. I suppose your work is very rewarding, knowing that you've done a good thing, you've matched this home up, they've got this much better life in the UK. So from that perspective, I suppose you see a lot of positives in that way. And for an owner who's brought a overseas rescue over and has done all the work and has put, I think it's probably a massively rewarding thing for them to go through.
Yeah, for your own ego and like confidence boost, it's amazing. And especially it's just that feeling that when Sylvie, my Raven Shepherd, she came over and she was totally shut down, totally like absolutely terrified of the world, of everything, of people, but not dogs. Loved dogs, has always loved dogs. And now, so she's been here three and a bit years now. She's a UK sniffer dog. She came with me on my course to do that. She's my stooge dog when I'm working with other dogs, because she reads dogs' body language so well that if a dog growled at her, she'd just go, okay, and just would carry on. She wouldn't think to do anything back. It's just, she's just not like that. She's not interested. She's just such a gentle, beautiful dog. Like if I could clone a perfect dog, she's absolutely fantastic. So I am very biased, but you can have these like amazing family dogs that she's great with kids, she's great with babies, she's great with all other dogs, all my family, everything else. But that took a lot of work. If you had told us in the first couple of months, because she actually came over as a foster dog, if you'd have told us in the first couple of months, we would never have believed that she would be the dog that she is now. But it was just that simple, really, really slow going at her pace. And even now we'll see things that last year she wouldn't have been able to do, and this year you can see even now progress and confidence and everything else. So it's definitely worth it.
Oh, so if somebody's listening to this today thinking that they want to rescue from overseas and considering adopting from overseas, what advice would you give them for doing that for the first time?
I would make sure that they get a trainer to begin with, to do like a pre-arrival session. So someone who is experienced in not just rescues, but overseas rescues, because they are different to UK dogs, and you have to adjust your life differently. Making sure that you're using a reputable, that's really hard to say, rescue, so that that you've got their support, you've got their backup. I'd say those are probably the two biggest points. And to take some time off work. You're not going to go back to work in the first 2 days. You're going to need to take a couple of weeks off to get them settled in.
Amazing. So if anybody wants to work with you in the future, and if they're going down this overseas route, or just do you do general dog training as well, how can they get into contact with you? What's the best way to get in touch with you and think, right, I want to work with Sam, how do I do it?
So I only work with rescue dogs, apart from scent work classes, which are mostly also rescue dogs, because everybody knows me as that. But I am on Facebook, Samantha Wayland Dog Training. I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, and my website is the same as well. I've got a page for owners of Cyprus dogs, so there's a Cyprus dog owners group. And we've got the Rescue Dog Care Network. God, there's a lot there. I'm listening, that's a lot.
So what we'll do is, if you send me all the links over, I will pop the links under the podcast, and then people can just click away and then just make it easier for them. But before we go, I'm gonna ask you some quick fire round questions, just so we can get to know you a little bit more. So tea or coffee?
Coffee all the time. I need as much caffeine as I can get.
You're like my husband, he's the same. I'm a tea person. So, well, quite a hard question now. What's your favourite dog breed?
Ooh. If I was going for an actual breed, An Irish wolfhound. I love an Irish wolfhound. They're just
Amazing.
big, dopey, scraggly. Yeah, love them.
Amazing. So what's your go-to dog product that you use or recommend all the time?
Ooh. I do use a lot of like tug toys, and the lotus ones that open, you put the
Oh
treats
yeah, the food
inside.
one. Yeah.
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 And on the end of a lead and that sort of stuff. I do a lot of that with rescue dogs to just engage that prey drive and get them going.
Amazing. And the last one, oh no, it's not the last one, sorry. Lead walk or off lead adventure?
Oh, off lead, definitely.
And then this is the last one. Favorite way to recharge after a busy day?
Normally, absolute car crash TV with my with my daughter. The trashier, the better. Yeah, I'm talking Love Island, Celebrity Big Brother, or completely the other way, like a true crime thing. So just something that I don't. The trash TV is just my brain's turned off. I
Yeah.
don't have to think. It's
Yeah.
nonsense, and that's it. At the end of the day, then.
That's exactly. I'm all for the reality TV, and that's exactly the same reason why I watch it. I'm just like, not so much for the crime, that kind of like freaks me out, scares me. So I'm definitely like reality TV, Big Brother, Love Island, anything, just so my brain can switch off and I don't have to think about anything. Oh, super. So thank you so much for coming on to today's podcast. Like I say, I'll put all of the links below. And if you are new to this podcast, please make sure that you subscribe and follow to make sure that you don't miss another episode. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much, Sam, for coming on, and we shall speak to you all real soon.
Bye.
Bye bye.